The Yonkos may be the most powerful characters in the entire world of One Piece, but that doesn't mean they're immortal. A large part of them is already dead, and since that's the topic, let's revisit how each of the Yonkos in the One Piece world met their end. Whitebeard. To start the list, let's talk about the Yonko with the most famous and sensational death in the One Piece world, Edward Newgate. It all began when the Lieutenant Blackbeard ended up killing the 4th Division commander of the crew. That was enough to make Ace go after Teach, as he wanted revenge for the death of his beloved comrade. When Ace finally came face to face with this traitor, they began an epic confrontation. On one side, we had Ace seeking revenge. On the other, Blackbeard, who not only wanted to escape death, but also had plans for Ace. Teach already had a plan to become one of the 7 Shichibukai, and for that, he intended to hand over Monkey D. Luffy's body to the government, but since Ace appeared right in front of him, he realized it would be even better to give up the famous commander of the Whitebeard pirates instead. This led the government to announce an execution, and since they knew Whitebeard wouldn't let his son die in despair, they began preparing for war. And then the war came, the famous War of the Great Ones that took place at Marineford. Whitebeard was, by far, the biggest name on the pirate side. He fought against vice admirals and faced all 3 admirals, especially Akainu, who was responsible for the greatest damage Newgate sustained throughout the battle. Countless gunshots, sword strikes from marines. Several attacks were directed at the world's strongest man. Despite this not being enough to take him out of the fight, Newgate kept standing to continue. But of course, the sheer amount of damage was taking a serious toll on his health. And to top it all off, Blackbeard arrived at the very end of the war, taking advantage of the moment when Newgate was already weakened. He and all his crew members shot multiple bullets into Whitebeard's body, which was enough to destroy any remaining physical condition he had to continue the fight. 267 swords cutting through his body, 46 cannon shots, and with his cloak falling to the ground, Edward Newgate dies standing, showing that the mark on his back would never have a scratch. Even close to death, the world's strongest man still demonstrated enough strength to leave a motivating message for the new generation. The One Piece is real, is Kaidu. Considered the strongest creature in the world of One Piece, Kaido of the Beast was the type of being who rarely encountered anyone capable of providing a worthy fight. To give you an idea, he was captured 18 times, sentenced to death over 40 times. Whenever he was hanged, the chains broke. When he was sent to the guillotine, the blades shattered. No one in the world was capable of killing him, not even he himself. Kaido spent much of his life searching for a way to die, whether by surrendering to the Marines or falling from a height of more than 10,000 meters. Many even say that it was very easy to solve this. Just throw himself into the sea, and that's it. He would die because he would run out of air and wouldn't be able to move, due to his devil fruit powers. That's true, but Kaido didn't want to die in such an undignified way. It would be too easy to die alone in the depths of the sea. He wanted to leave his mark, even if it was just as a massive crater in the ground. That's when, suddenly, he had to face a pirate and samurai alliance that wanted to claim the throne of Wano country. And at the forefront of this alliance was Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy had 5 battles against Kaido throughout the Wano country arc. First, they fought in the Kuri region. Luffy started by using his 4th gear, but even so, he was defeated after taking a blow from Kaido's club. However, this defeat gave him a sense of the disparity between his power and that of a Yonko. Thus, he dedicated all of his following days to one single purpose: training. In the Udon prison, Luffy began training tirelessly with Hyogoro, an old and highly experienced samurai from Wano. After training with the old Hyogoro, Luffy was finally able to learn to use advanced armament haki, which gave him the ability to land attacks without the need for physical contact. After training with Hyogoro and escaping from Udon, Luffy and the Alliance made their way to Onigashima, the site of the next battle between Kaido and the samurai. There, Luffy counted on the help of Zoro, Killer, Kid, and Law in the fight against Kaido and Big Mom. The battle was intense, and after being defeated by Kaido, Luffy stood up again and faced the beast alone at the top of Onigashima, while the other 4 descended to fight Big Mom and her commanders. But this defeat made him realize the reason Kaido was so powerful. The beast had extremely powerful attacks, simply by imbuing his attacks with Conqueror's haki. With this, Luffy learned a new ability. With Advanced Conqueror's Haki, the fight became much more balanced, but here's the problem. Kaidu defeated Luffy again and threw him into the sea. Luffy was about to be killed, but was saved by the Heart Pirates, who had been lurking in the area with their submarine. With his strength restored, Luffy climbed onto Momonosuke's back, the dragon, and headed toward Kaidu. There they began another fight, even more balanced, where Luffy used his fourth gear, while Kaidu gave his all in his hybrid form. But unfortunately, Luffy was once again defeated after a CP0 agent interfered in the battle. With Luffy on the ground, Kaidu thought victory was guaranteed, but then drums started echoing throughout Wano country. This sound was none other than the return of Nika, the sun god. Luffy was able to come back to life after awakening Nika's transformation, which allowed him to take on an even more powerful form, capable of facing Kaidu head-on. At the end of this battle, Luffy created a fist so massive that he was finally able to send Kaidu into the lava of Wano country, thus declaring his victory over Kaidu and taking his place as a Yonko of the seas of One Piece. As for Kaidu, we know he was defeated. The question is whether he actually died. Many theorized that he could return and perhaps even ally with Luffy. Look, in my opinion, I think Kaidu has already done what he was meant to do. He has already fulfilled his purpose, experienced his defeat, and completed his role in the story, which was to be defeated by Joy Boy. But anyway, we have to wait for Oda to show us what actually happened to Kaidu. Big Mom is metaphorically in the same boat as Kaidu. As soon as Luffy managed to escape from Whole Cake after causing numerous problems there, the Yonko decided she would go to Wano country to get revenge on the Straw Hat. Upon arriving, she formed an alliance with Kaidu himself to defeat Luffy and ensure that one of them would reach the One Piece. This led to their battle on top of Onigashima against the Supernovas. In this battle, she ended up being thrown from the top. Separated from Kaidu, the Yonko began her fight against Kid and Law at the same time. In this fight, the two Supernovas had to deal with Big Mom, who was using everything she had to win. In her arsenal of techniques, Big Mom mainly relied on her durability to withstand the blows from both, in addition to her souls, including Prometheus, Hera, and Napoleon. But things were really not looking good for the old Yonko. She had to deal with the fact that two Paramecias were being awakened in front of her. With the awakened powers of the Ope Ope no Mi and the Jiki Jiki no Mi, Kid and Law used their most enhanced techniques simultaneously to stop the strongest woman in the world. After several attempts, they realized that Big Mom was on another level. No matter how many blows they landed, Mama always came out on top. That's when Law used his strongest attack, the Puncture Wile. With this attack, he extended his blade to the far reaches of Wano country, where there was only lava. After putting his powers into the sword, a massive hole formed in all the locations the sword passed through. Big Mom almost managed to escape, but Kid took advantage of the opening and threw her into the lava. With these combined attacks, Kid and Law were able to defeat Big Mom. Now, just like Kaidu, we don't know if she died or if she will come back. Well, to be honest, I think she will return, especially because in the manga, she made it clear that she would come back. Roger. Moving away from the official Yonkos, let's talk about those who had a level of Emperor of the Sea but didn't receive the title, as it was only recently created by the government to establish a power balance in the world. However, if the concept of Yonko had existed in Roger's time, he would have easily been one. Roger realized he was very sick when the doctors delivered the sad news that his days were numbered. It was then that he called upon his excellent doctor, Crocus, who managed to give Roger a few more years of life. Roger greatly wanted these extra years to carry out his final and most epic journey of all, the journey to find the One Piece. They passed through many islands, collected the 4 poneglyphs, and finally reached Laugh Tale. With the journey complete, it was time for Roger to face the consequences of his life. He said goodbye to his crew and went in search of a woman to have a child before he died. After she became pregnant, Roger decided to turn himself in to the government so they could execute him. And to make the world believe that the government had captured the infamous Pirate King, the Navy organized this event for everyone to see them kill the greatest criminal in the world. But of course, Roger would not go quietly. As his last words, he made that famous declaration that we all know, and thus his death sparked the great era of pirates. But the question is, what illness killed the Pirate King? I have a theory that might explain this. For example, have you noticed that in the world of One Piece, the topic of life expectancy is frequently discussed? A notable example is Luffy, who suffers greatly from his life expectancy. especially due to the battles that nearly brought him to death's door. It's likely that the same thing happened to Roger. For example, Whitebeard died at 72, suffering from numerous problems related to fatigue and durability. But there are people in the One Piece world who live to be 80 or 100 years old without facing such issues. So how did Whitebeard suffer from so many illnesses from an early age? Simple. He accumulated a large number of extreme battles throughout his life, which diminished his life expectancy. The same must have happened to Roger. On several occasions, he fought against Rocks, Garp, Sengoku, Whitebeard, Shiki, and other legends to the point of exhaustion. This probably caused him to come close to death many times, further compromising his life expectancy and damaging his body. Luffy? Yes, Luffy died, and I'll show you how. We've already made a well-explained summary of how Luffy was defeated multiple times by Kaidu, right? Well, on the fourth time he was defeated, little Luffy literally went from commies and babies. When the Cypher Pull agent interfered in their fight, Luffy ended up getting hit squarely by Kaidu. The beast had already hit Luffy several times, but this was the worst, because the Straw Hat was already at his limit. Before being struck, Luffy had already declared that it would be his last blow, as his fourth gear was at its limit, and since he was at his limit, obviously a punch from Kaidu didn't help much. He fell to the ground unconscious. His pupil wasn't even visible anymore. Kid, Law, and Momonosuke quickly realized that Luffy's presence was no longer there, and everyone said they couldn't hear his voice anymore. Some had even accepted Luffy's death. After all, his heart had truly stopped. But as you know, Luffy didn't die. Quite the opposite. He came back 500 times stronger with the transformation of Nika, the sun god. But the question is, if he was exhausted and dead, how did he come back to the fight even stronger? Well, in my view, I think Luffy's fruit itself caused this. If you don't remember, it's said that zones have their own consciousness, which can manipulate some things to fulfill their desires. Following this line of thought, I believe that Nika's fruit wanted to bring Luffy back to life. In other words, as soon as the fruit realized that Luffy was about to die, it began bombarding his heart with the drums of liberation, allowing him not only to come back to life but also to awaken the Nika transformation, which is accessed only through the beats of the liberation drums. So, did you remember the death of all these guys? Well, only here on the channel can you get information like this that you probably didn't even remember existed. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Go ahead, there's a lot of great content like this here with us. But that's it. I really appreciate your attention, and I'll see you in the next video.